And we are back on Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest. Ranj is here with us, and we're going to, as always, have a great conversation because I bring on some incredible people with some incredible experience and expertise, and we're going to talk about hers today. So, no further ado, Ranj, introduce yourself, a little backstory, bring us up to speed. Let us know what we're going to be hitting today, and we're going to get into it.
All right. So I am Ranjini Joshua. I'm the CEO and founder of the Silver Telegram, and my background is in public relations. I've been doing this for 20 years. I started in wireless and mobile telecoms. I actually thought I was going to be an entertainment PR person until I got into tech. And it was like right before the bubble burst. So I was just emerging tech and startups were just ramping up and getting popular. And I was like, oh, this pays well. So I'm just going to keep doing it. So I established a career in tech PR specifically. I did my time in Silicon Valley at big PR agencies there. I've worked in-house in PR and marketing at video game companies. So I've worked on all kinds of tech, from video games to headphones to hardware to networking hardware to enterprise software. So I've done a little bit of everything in the technology space. And in 2011, I started my own agency because I saw that there was like a little gap in startups. And I was like, oh, I could work with those guys. Like, you know, big agencies are passing up little money. So I took that little money and turned it into something a little bit more established. And yeah, we've been doing it since 2011. I have a small team, but I've really been working on focusing on startups and tech and small businesses, entrepreneurs that are really just trying to establish their brand and get some brand visibility so that they can have better business quality and good business development. So yeah, that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, there's it's interesting, Ryan, there's a place for, we always talk about niches, right? And the old saying, the riches are in the niches, but it's beyond that. Like you can make money anywhere. That's not, making money is like the easiest thing you do in business. But what I like is when people actually go serve a sector that's kind of being ignored, or discounted and stuff like that, because you can bring real value to that and you can be part of the change that kind of brings them up into the light, right? And take them out and really get them the exposure they need and want, because just because you're small doesn't mean you can't be big, or just successful. Forget about the big part.
Right.
People think big is, and I don't work at giant companies because I don't want to turn those ships are too hard to turn.
Yeah.
They're way too big to turn, right? It's like, I don't want to wait like 2 months to get a decision on something.
To do one thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I don't even know how they function, but they do. But I love the agility aspect, right? I love to be able to be flexible, but then have that one-on-one too when we work with people to really understand their brand, who they're serving, what they're doing, right? So let's talk a little bit about that, because that's something you do in a pretty cool way.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that I found with small businesses, and I'm a marketer, PR person, whatever. So every time I go outside, it's like I'm just looking for different funny opportunities to fill holes and gaps and make things better. And one of the things is like just having consistent messaging for people. Like just have a message that's consistent. Say the same thing all the time. And it might sound like it's repetitive or redundant. This is like a thing that we all have a problem with. Self-promotion sometimes where it feels like too gratuitous. But if you don't say the same thing every time, people are not going to remember it. Like, just do it. We all know that's Nike. It's repetitive. It's constant. It's a tagline that they've kind of nurtured over decades. So it's like the same thing for small businesses and even entrepreneurs. Like even your own mission statement, your values and your goals, like stick with it. Stick with your consistent messaging. And then people will finally associate your brand, your person, your company with that consistent message. And I think that's the biggest gap I find in any kind of company we work with, across any kind of type, right? Whether it's technology or lifestyle. I mean, I've worked with documentaries, like everything. It's just, you got to have a consistent brand message and goal. and know your target audience. So those are like probably the two main things, is really understand your target audience, but then have that same message for everybody. So that's really important. And then delivering it in a way that people like actually consume information. That's the third thing, right? Like, don't try to, everybody was, I remember, when social media really took off, everybody was like, okay, I need a Facebook and an Instagram and a Twitter and a Pinterest, and I need all these social media things. But if your audience is not on Instagram or Twitter, why would you be there? You don't need to do it just to do it. Do things with a purpose. And I think, in certain areas, Facebook is just a treasure trove for people. In some other areas and demographics, it's Instagram. Now for like the younger demographic in Gen Z, it's like Snapchat and TikTok. So you really have to go where your audience is and make sure that you're looking at from their perspective rather than your perspective. And I think when you're doing business development and growth, sometimes you want to look at like, okay, where do I want to be in 5 years? And like, what brand do I want to be like? But until you're like that brand, your audience is still in a certain place. Your audience is still looking for information where they're looking for it. So I think that's the third thing. The first thing is really establishing consistent branding across, hopefully you have a website. So I'll go to your website and then any kind of social media channels or anywhere, Google listings, wherever you are. And then really understanding your positioning towards your target audiences and what they're looking for. And then the third thing is going where they live and making sure that you're addressing them where they're already consuming information. I remember, one of these startups that we worked with a while ago, this was back in 2011, and he was so adamant on getting on Good Morning America. And we got him on Good Morning America. He had a really cool gadget, very cool thing. So we actually ended up getting this Good Morning America spot. It was 30 seconds. Okay, so imagine when you're talking on broadcast and big TV, they're not very long spots. They're about 30 seconds. Huge win, really cool for us. However, in that segment, it was like a morning segment that was talking about cool new gadgets. People weren't sitting there waiting to buy. So they didn't actually see a huge spike in sales because the people that are watching that show were drinking their morning coffee and getting ready for work. They weren't going to go buy anything at that moment. So even though it was a great win and actually they can use it obviously for other things, the reason that they wanted to use it initially was to drive sales. That actually didn't actually happen at all. It didn't happen at all. And then you get another piece in a smaller publication where people are looking to buy something. They're looking for, what is the best gadget for finding things? It was actually a gadget. And if that person reads it, maybe their intent to purchase is a lot higher because they're looking actually for the best gadgets, right? But when you're looking at an audience like Good Morning America, they're just consuming general news and general interest information for the day. So some of those things people don't even realize, they don't realize that, going to your audience where they want to actually make an action that you're interested in, like sales or, contact me or get a demo or whatever the case may be. That's really important.
Yeah, I agree with you. I remember I was always getting all these publications. I'm in magazines and I'm in papers and I'm a little TV spot here and there and stuff like that. And it was that. And people would see it and like, oh, you must get a lot of work from that. I'm like, yeah, I got about that much, 0. Okay. You don't get work from that. No. You don't get work because they see you. It adds credibility.
Yes.
Right. So like, hey, I've been published. I have 4 pages in this.
It's reputation.
Covers. Yeah. It's all that stuff but it doesn't get me any work. From specifically, right? Like they saw that and called me. No one ever did that. Yeah. No one ever in 20 years of my business, they ever called me because they saw me in a magazine. Okay. Now, if I'm standing in a garden that I built at Navy Pier in Chicago and 180,000 people are walking through, guess what? I sold a lot because they're in what I do. They're looking at all this stuff. It's a specific market there to buy, like you're saying. Yeah. I think one other thing, to go back a little bit on that consistency thing, I've struggled with that because as a front guy, like I'm out front, right? I'm the guy. I'm pitching. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm on 150 podcasts. I'm this. Finally go, do I really have to tell the story again? Yeah. Like again and again and again. But you have to realize, just like you're saying, like wait a minute, this is a different podcast, a different audience, different people, different TV show. You just have to keep going.
Yeah.
The good news is you get to master the presentation of that story. You get really, really good at it, which is great. But sometimes I let I got to take my foot off. I can't tell the story again. I'm dying here. So you got to figure out a way around that, right? How else can we deliver the same message without me doing it, right? Because I know me, and give me 3 to 6 months of doing this, and I'm going to man, I got
You got to take a little break sometimes. Yeah.
Right. So is that something you do because you've got to, and that's kind of a dumb question. Of course you do these things, but what I mean is we really have to, on the consistency of the message, because I think this is a really critical aspect of branding, really is to get multiple prongs out there, right? When you're delivering this message, same message, like you're saying, but where are our people? If one's on Facebook or they're on Instagram or it's a LinkedIn thing, you're a B2B, whatever it is, it's really important to try to maximize. If your audience, I'm trying to say, if your audience is in 3 or 4 different places that you're really familiar with, you've got to hit all 4 or 5 of those. Maybe not with me only, but you have other avenues, whether they're videos or whatever they're doing, right? You kind of have to make a strategy.
I mean, I always if people give me the time to do it, it's nice to be able to do a user journey type thing. So who is this target person that we're looking at, and what does their journey kind of look like, and maybe map it out in a couple different ways. And then you could say, oh, well, this person, they would really be convinced if I did a 1-minute video. So doing a video for that person, or, oh, this person would be really convinced if I followed up with some case studies, and making sure you have those assets. So it's kind of, walking the shoes of the person. And yes, all of this takes time and energy. And that's I think that's the biggest holdup on when people are doing marketing in general. It's do I have the time to do that? But do you have the time to miss business too? If you can really set up some time, and this is the pot calling the kettle black. I have this problem too. So if you could set back the time to really sit down and at least follow 1 or 2 user journeys and create content that you think would be the most interesting, then I think that would be worth your while, and you'll see a lot of results out of that. I always tell my team that, hey, they always say hey, do you think this is a good subject line, or do you think this is a good content? I'm well, why don't you send it to yourself and see if you would open it? Right. Would you open that email? And, most of the time it's a no. It's a no. I'm not going to open the email. And that's why I have this practice. I mean, I love creative emails. So when I see an email that I really loved and I opened it with enthusiasm, I'm oh, I'm going to recreate that. I just use that as an example. So these are little things to watch out for just in your daily business too. If there's an email that really piqued your interest, recreate that and use it for yourself. You could reuse these things. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so that's one thing that, I really like to try to do is put myself in the shoes of the other person so that you can really customize that experience for them. This is customer service 101.
Yeah, exactly. I think when I work with businesses, I find a lot of them really don't have a well-formatted ICP, the ideal client profile. They really don't know who they're serving. They kind of go the wide net approach. Oh, everybody needs this. Well, but everybody doesn't want that. Yeah. Everyone may need it, but everyone doesn't want it. Okay, you got to find the people who want it. And this thing is, unless you dig really deep, you really have to drill down in discovering who, like you said, the client journey. That's part of it, right? That's how they're going to go about it. But who are they? I think that part is, and it's hard for you, and I'm making an assumption here. It has to be difficult for someone who's going to build your brand if you don't bring that information to them. So if you're listening and you're a business, I mean, it sounds obvious, but I'm telling you, most people don't. They don't know, where do they live? What's the median household income? Where do they spend their time online, offline? How many kids do they have? What do they do for hobbies and sport? I'm talking about know them better than they know themselves, right? Really understand that so you can bring this person, because then you understand habits and you understand circles, right? And where they're running, where they're at. Now you can target them even better. So I'm just saying this so the business owners who may come to you, come prepared don't come with nothing.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of
Because
the questions I ask. That's one of the
right,
questions I ask them is, hey, who's your target buyer? Like, what is their name? Like, what is their title? What is their name? Who are they? Because that's the same thing with PR. Like, how can I message to someone if I don't know who they are?
right. It's so important. It's like I didn't I didn't understand that my first business was like, I built water features, right? Well,
Okay.
everyone needs a water feature. No, they don't. They don't need a water feature, but certain people want it. So I really had to figure out who that is. Like magazine advertising didn't work.
No, yeah.
It really wasn't. Oh, let me share a really high level of stupidity with everyone that I did. Okay. So,
Go
because
for
I'm
it.
such a genius at business back in the day. So, radio, I built water features, right? Custom water features. So, picture waterfalls and boulders and steel sculpture, all this stuff. So, I decided to do radio advertising.
Oh, God.
Okay. So, see, you're already laughing because So, I dropped 80 grand,
Oh, no.
$80,000, okay, to be on radio. And I got zero. I got one nut job who called me, one nut job. Okay, like he was from another planet. I don't know, it wasn't the stuff he was asking, but I did get a really cool coffee mug from the radio station.
For the
So my wife,
$80,000, your
for
$80,000 coffee mug.
for like 15 years, my wife made fun of that coffee mug. You be careful, that's 80
Oh, my
grand you got in your
God.
hand. You be careful. Because because I'm a visual business, right? When you think about it, like you have to see the waterfall. You have to see my work. You can't talk about it.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
I did lots of stupid things. We could spend a whole series on all the dumb things I did and lost, but that's just part of it, right? It's really understanding who you're serving, then how. I really like what you said, Ranjini, earlier was how they're consuming the information, right?
Yeah.
That's like I haven't really thought of it that way. You're like, how do they actually consume their information? Because we know we got visual, audio, you got whatever it is. Okay, there's a bunch of kinds, I'm sure, but I think that's a critical aspect to having a successful campaign of any sort, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm in a small market here. So, I found that a lot of people communicate through Facebook. And that's not, in California where I was before, they do communicate through Facebook, but it wasn't as focused on Facebook as it was. So Facebook Marketplace is huge. Facebook groups is huge and everything. Like I wasn't used to that. And so a lot of the small businesses that are in this area, they communicate on Facebook and do a lot of their business on Facebook. But when I see in larger markets like Los Angeles, you're looking at bigger platforms where, you can have more fancy things. So it really, the demographics really matter. And like you said, radio actually works really well in some markets and for some businesses. But
Right.
in markets like Los Angeles, it's going to be expensive and it may not reach who you want it to, unless it's like auto insurance, right? Like other
Right.
than that, you may not get it. Now you might be looking at streaming services and advertising on like Spotify or things like that, because now all the cars are enabled with Spotify and people
Right.
are using Sirius a little bit more and things like that. So you really have to start looking at, I mean, there's so many platforms out there that, where do you think they are is a really important question for everybody. And I would still argue that billboards, radio, broadcasts, all of the old school stuff still applies. It just depends on what kind of business you are. Like in Los Angeles, there's this huge billboard of a dental team and plastic surgery teams. Like, I think that works for them. I think that
Right.
makes a lot of sense because it's localized, it's in your face, you're waiting in traffic. Like, that totally makes sense. But, having something else, like maybe them being in a national publication probably wouldn't really do much for their business because it's not localized. So if you're a
Right.
localized business, think local. If you are looking to establish yourself as an industry leader, think more nationally. If you're looking to drive sales, think to where people, like, what are people searching up on Google to buy stuff? And that's what Google SEO is basically all about. What are people searching up on Google? And so
Right.
that's another activity that I do actually very often to come up with topics like what PR topics are people questioning about? What do they want to know? And so I
Right.
look up I look up questions on Google SEO, like different Google SEO platforms, where I like say, okay, what questions are people asking about PR? What is a press release? Okay, so I'm going to answer that question. And so it's like, these are the different ways that you can kind of discover what people are searching up and looking for, where they're looking for it. I mean, that's a really good way to put content on your website too. That's what a little hack to put content on your website. What is your customer going to search up in Google and write a blog about it? Because that's going to be the first thing that comes up. Like these are little things that you could kind of do to really put yourself in the place of your customer.
And that's a good point. I was thinking of something too that I want to tell people. Like, again, this may be it's not obvious. All these, whether it's billboards, it's radio, it's TV, it's magazines, or whatever it is, all these options you have. Okay, I will guarantee you 100%, none of them will tell you this is not your medium. They will take your money and they'll throw you on that billboard and you'll get nothing from it. Or they'll put you over here, they'll put you on radio. They won't tell you this won't work. Okay? So this is why when you get a brand expert, someone who does the marketing, and then they're requesting information regarding your client, everything else, the whole user experience, what that is, this is another reason why it's so important, because how can you direct it if you don't know? You may do the billboard thing because you don't know, but I'm telling you, none of them will tell you it's the wrong market. They just don't have the integrity.
They'll get your money. They'll get your money.
That's right. That's what they want. They want their commission. That salesman wants their commission.
Yeah.
So just remember that. It's important.
Sometimes if you're not sure, I'm willing to try stuff. I mean, obviously it depends on how much money you have and resources and what you're willing to spend. But if you're unsure, there's always trying and failing is fine. Trying and succeeding is even better. So that's not a problem either if you're unclear on exactly what medium is the best thing. But first you can whittle it down to like 2 or 3,
Yeah, and do it in small increments. Don't mortgage the house. Okay, so you have a billboard campaign you're not sure of. So you got to, let's test the water a little bit. Let's give it some time, a certain amount of money, and then, okay, let's look at the data. What's the returns on this? So it's, it's a tricky thing to navigate. And let me ask you this question. So you've got people who and I deal a lot, I'm in seminars and I do this for a lot of people. You got the DIY people, no matter what, they're going to do it themselves. Whatever you tell them you can do for them, they're going to say, I can do that for myself. Okay. And they go out and do it. And they usually spend 5 to 10 times more money than you would have with them and everything else. And they do it wrong. And the whole thing, right? Because they're all good. And they just want more things on their plate, I guess. So, but with that being said, it really is to take on something like that, like for me, and I learned this over decades, but I heard some of my mistakes, right? Like trying to navigate that when you own a business, you're running the business, trying to move a product or service, manage teams, or doing whatever else you're doing. Marketing is a specific skill set. Okay, that almost no entrepreneur has, unless you're an entrepreneur who owns a marketing agency. Then you might have that skill, right?
Well, because you started as a marketer and then you became an entrepreneur. That's why.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's difficult, right? So what we want to try to think is like you have to look at the ROI of this. Like you really need to look at. I'm big on farming things out. I'm big on hiring people, right? Experts who can do it. Now finding the right one. Marketing itself it's always has been kind of a Wild West thing. The old saying was 50% of my marketing doesn't work. I just don't know which 50%, right? That's an old school saying they used to have, because like, well, I don't know. Something's not working. Some of it's working, some of it's not working. So, but I just want to encourage people, taking marketing on yourself as a business owner is an incredible mistake. I'm telling you, it's like you can be out knocking on doors and making more money than doing that yourself. Okay, the time that it's going to suck from your life, you're not going to know where it goes. I mean, there's way too many, and I'm not promoting you, another market, anyone else. I'm just saying, like, I know entrepreneurs, work with them all the time. I'm one for 35 years. Like, you don't want to do it.
It's just time saving, right? It's really time saving because even I even have this issue with other things, right? So like not with the marketing side, but if I'm doing like, let's say I'm doing a video or something. I'm not a video editor. I don't want to spend 5 hours doing something that really takes 1 hour to do. It doesn't make any sense. My 5 hours is better spent doing the thing that I'm good at. So it's the same for everybody. Your 5 hours are spent better doing the one thing that you're good at. And if you pay someone for 1 hour, that's going to save you so much money. And they can do it a lot faster and more efficiently. Obviously, you have to hire someone that you trust and you feel confident with. But they should be able to give you a fast, efficient delivery of a result, or at least give you a projection of like, okay, this is how much time this is going to take roughly, and this is what we expect to come out of it. Like you can get all that information. And I think that's one thing that's a challenge, especially for entrepreneurs who don't like the unknown. They're like, well, I don't know what metric I'm supposed to get out of marketing. Like, what exactly am I supposed to get? They're not getting a physical object. So it's like, you should be able to get a plan, an outline, a timeline, and some results. Like, okay, this is the kind of result we can deliver, and get a little idea at least of what you can get for the time that's going to be spent. And if you think you could do it yourself, I, encourage you to try. Richard does not want you to try because it's a waste of time. But I always say, hey, sure, if you could do it yourself, you could try to do it yourself. But what you'll find is it's not impossible to do. It just takes an incredible amount of time. And hiring someone with 10 years of experience is going to just save you 10 years of your life, know?
Well, you have to tell them, don't be embarrassed to come back to me when it doesn't work.
Yes, also.
I totally forgive you. I will totally forgive you, and we'll get right to it, and we'll get your results, okay? So just remember that. It's important. But I'm with you. That time compression, that's what experts do.
Yeah.
Me as a coach,
Yeah.
I compress 10 years of time into a year. Okay, who doesn't want that?
Exactly.
This is what marketing does too, and it really is important. Now, again, you have to vet people and you go through things, but let's talk about this. Like, marketing is a really big umbrella.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's all these different things, and a lot of people are not general marketers. Okay, they have a specific lane they run in.
Niche. Yeah.
Right, and that's what you do. So, I think people need to understand. You have to kind of know the outcome you're looking for, right? Is that kind of where you start with the outcome, and then you see who can get that outcome? How does that work?
I think so. I think that's a great place to start. Like, what are the results that you're looking for first? And then working backwards to see, okay, well, I think I need email marketing for that. Or I need to build a better social presence. And so you're going to social media for that. Or you're going to an email marketer for that. Or I need that brand reputation. So maybe you go to PR for that. So yeah, you have to know which facet you want to go into. And it could be a multiples, right? Like it could be like, I want to build my brand reputation and I want to email my potential customers. So then it's like email marketing and PR. So you have to know that the different things have different time frames as well. Like email marketing is going to be a lot faster resulting than PR, which is brand and reputation management. It takes at least 6 months to a year to build any kind of brand reputation because reputation is a redundancy. It's a consistent reputation that you're building. Email marketing, someone could potentially buy something if you have a good email in one email. I mean, that's a really good email campaign, but I'm just, that for example purposes, usually you have email flows about 3 or 4 emails or 5 emails that go out over a period of time that will build your case over time. And that's a little bit faster than the PR, but combined, those are very powerful. But first thing you want to do is really identify how much resources you have. How much are you willing to put into this? Whether it's time, money, or also you have to find the people, right? So these types of resources. Then you want to say, okay, these are the different outcomes I want. I want increase in traffic to my website. It would be nice if I had some immediate sales over the next couple months. Like, what are the fastest tracks to those things? And then now what communication can I put? So I've been lately talking more about integrated communications versus like PR or marketing or social media in silos, because really what any campaign really needs is like kind of a cohesive effort between those things. So it's more like, what kind of communication do I want to create for the customer? And again, this goes back to building that customer journey. What does the customer journey look like? And then like meeting all the different things we've been talking about today, of like, okay, they consume information this way, or they're a little more likely to open an email at this time. And then they're going to hit their social media. So I want to have something there too. So it's like you kind of have to, all those things outlined and working together is what you're building here. And now the more we're talking about it, the more complicated it's becoming, right? And now it's like, oh God, I'm an entrepreneur. I don't have time for this. So now we're getting closer to the, I got to hire someone, It's
that's
like,
right. And
you get to that
here's
journey.
the next thing here's the next thing on that too, Ranjini, is the thing that I didn't understand. I like to get things done. I'm an owner. I'm a founder. I'm the visionary guy. I want to get things done very quickly. I make decisions very quickly. I do things. That in marketing is kind of it's a quandary, right? Because marketing isn't going to save your business, next month. Okay, yeah. It's not. There is and you'll hear the term, it's a long game, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I don't like hearing that either. So if you're a marketer, find different terms, because things like that to entrepreneurs irritate us. When you tell us it's a long game, I'm like, you need to find a different way to explain that. Okay, you're telling me sit down and give me money for a long period of time, and nothing's going to happen.
If it's somebody I don't want to work with, if it's someone I don't want to work with, I use it's a marathon, not a sprint, and then that usually gets them off my back.
See, that's right. So I'm playing both sides of the fence here. Understand again as a marketer who you're talking to. Okay, your customer, because stuff like that is like there's another way to say it. To understand the investment aspect of it, because it's not going to happen overnight. I
was just going to say I have a great example of that. Someone reached out to me last week and they said, we need media coverage by Friday. And I was like, oh, do you? Okay. How is that supposed to work? Well, how much would we have to pay you to get media coverage? I'm like, well, since media coverage is earned, it's something that you have to earn. You have to tell a story. You can't guarantee anything like that. And you really need to build your reputation. I'm like, well, why are you looking for this media coverage? And they said, well, my CEO has been in sales calls, but they don't see any reputation or brand credibility. So we're trying to build brand credibility. So they're trying to build brand credibility by the end of the week. By the end of the week.
Okay. Wow.
And I was like, I had to tell them, I was like, you know what? I really can't even help you, because that's not something that makes sense. If you guys want to look into a long-term thing, reputation, you have to build reputation step by step. And they're like stepping blocks. You could do other things for short-term hits, and then we can do stepping blocks. That's not to say I couldn't get the media coverage by the end of the week. I definitely could have, but that's not going to solve their problem, and they're just going to be mad.
Yeah, I would say
they're just going to be upset about it.
I would get the CEO on the horn and say, you want to know why you don't have brand reputation? Because the people you have working for you don't know what it means.
Yeah,
that's why you don't have it. Okay, they're literally calling, thinking they can get it with a phone call, and in 5 days, like you might want to change the team. You might want to hire some new people. That's where I'd start. But that's me. I'm a little direct.
This is classic entrepreneurship, though. Like you see a problem, you want to solve that problem right away, and you're like, oh yeah, this article is going to solve my problem, all my problems. But in the near term, the best thing could have been to change up your sales approach. Is probably the best thing that you could have done in the short term time frame. So it's like,
or do a major charity thing, like do a big charity thing, like you get the press and giving some way, helping this, do something big like that. All of a sudden, people are, whoa, that's really, but you're going to drop 10, 20,000.
Oh, but this guy was also on a budget.
Just do it. Go help someone. Do something big, and you get some press and everything else. You could do that, but I'm saying like it's all a process, and it's hard for us as entrepreneurs to kind of handle that, So the strategy, the game plan is really critical, right?
Well, and exactly, I was actually right about to say, that's why I do tell entrepreneurs early on to DIY their PR. And the way you can do that is start talking about what you do and your subject matter expertise. Right. So whether it's on LinkedIn or whether you're writing an article every month or a blog, like if you do small things like that, when you really need it later, it won't be so urgent because you've set some kind of tone for being an expert in what you do. And then it'll be a lot easier for your marketer. It'll be a lot easier for your brand and for you in the future. So I always say, like, if you have a subject matter expertise, be visible about it early on and weave it into your regular schedule. Like if you can write one blog a month, I feel like that's doable by most entrepreneurs, one blog a month. But at least you're doing something rather than nothing, so that when that sense of urgency comes to you, you'll be like, oh, well, actually, I've written all these blogs already. Like I've already been on these podcasts. Right. So you're doing a little tiny bit to set the groundwork. But then when you have a marketer come and is ready to really like champion you, you've set some groundwork there. And that's what I think is probably the best thing for any business owner or entrepreneur to do, is to really try to establish that level. And then that helps you actually also fine tune your message. It also helps you fine tune your thought process on what you're doing in business.
And your clients, that ICP gets back to that. You start to understand your customer journey, because in the beginning, people are always just hustling for sales. Okay. So if you're in the beginning, the first couple of years of your business, it's just about income generation for the most part. Right. And really feeling out, what you're actually doing. Most people don't go in. Well, I was saying, there's an old saying, I'll say, no battle plan ever survives the first shot. Right. Mm-hmm. So you got this great idea and you bring it to market and you think it's going to be this. And there's a million stories of we were serving exactly the wrong people. And we found that out by chance 8 months in. And we shifted and it exploded because we were actually, who we thought wanted it didn't actually want it. Or when they talk about it got used for 4 different things we never intended, and that's what really made it take off. So because it got out there and people started using it for different things, you built it for this, but they're using it for this. No one cares. It's all good. Whatever you want, as long as you're buying it. Throw it down the road. I don't care, but as long as you paid me, I'm good. So it's kind of, you're right about building that in the beginning. You have to establish your own credibility. I mean, that's kind of proof of concept in a sense, right? You've got to have that. And then if you can talk about it and get in front of people and speak. And now today with podcasting, this is a perfect example. You can get 30, 40, 50 minutes, 60 minutes talking about what you do. And you can guest a lot. You can be, again, that gets out there, and online, it builds that personal SEO. Now, and talking about your company, because it's in show notes and they're talking about it, and the internet's picking this stuff up, and now you're on 10 or 20 or 30. That's a do-it-yourself thing. You can book those times and get on there and do it. It's a great way to get going. And the reason why I'm saying this stuff, Ranjini, and is because it helps the marketer, okay? And I don't mean that because I want to help marketers per se. What I want your marketing campaign to be successful. Like, you can't give someone nothing and tell them to make something happen. It's like the PR people get us brand recognition in 5 days. That's the nonsense, right? So you got to do your part. Get the wheels moving. It's way easier to steer a car if it's moving than when it's sitting in place, right? You can turn the wheel. So get that going. Then they have something to give to you or a marketer. Now you can run with the brand. You can develop the brand because you have so many elements to see, and you probably have a great onboarding system so you can get this information, put it in place, and you guys can develop a strategy. And I use the word strategy because as an entrepreneur, you have to understand that aspect too. Strategy it's chess, not checkers, right? We're really looking down the road. We're going to move a couple pieces around. We're going to get here, and in time, in a certain, whether it's 6 months, 3 months, 9 months, 12 months, 24 months, we're going to reach this. You're going to start to see the ROI on this. I think a lot of times, I know I was early on too, I want a black and white ROI for marketing, right? And it's really difficult to get, right? It's like, the only way you get it is when like the campaign's over.
Yeah, right.
So, and even then it's difficult because marketing isn't transactional. You know what I mean? It's not, hey, we said this 10 times and we sold this amount of product. That's not what it is, right? It's this, I did this and we were here and you were on these shows and we did this and this and this. So you had all this and then we got this and you're up 9% on your bottom line. So marketing, I'm air quoting, gave you a 9% bottom line increase. That's amazing. But it's not the one element of the marketing. It's the whole process, right? So I think that's where the confusion comes when people want an ROI, because it's easy as an entrepreneur, just give me numbers. The important numbers.
Well, if you give me time, I can give you numbers. I can't give you numbers by the end of the week, but I could definitely do it at 6 months. I can give you some numbers. So to numbers are fine if you give me a reasonable amount of time to create that data.
Yeah, because it's cumulative. It's all cumulative.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a good point I want to put out there, because I think these are some of the questions or things in entrepreneurs' heads when they're trying to quantify this expense for marketing and this campaign, and then I know you know about this. You have to. They pull the plug in like 30 days because they're not making any money, right? Like, this isn't working. Like, it's marketing. It's not going to work in 30 days, but people, I don't, I'm the same turn. Yeah.
Well, I think we all feel the same way too. Like I have had campaigns run for 30 days and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not helping me. But then I realized I kept this one campaign I was doing myself, and we kept it on for 60 days, and then it started rolling in. And then I was like, oh, so this campaign, it was designed to really come in a couple of months, not just 1 month. So then I'm like, oh, now I'm reaping the benefits of it. But the being patient is so hard as an entrepreneur. It's so hard, especially when you're chasing those dollars at the beginning, So I even forget the beginning. Like, we have ebbs and flows all the time, right? Like, it goes up and down. Yeah. And so it's just consistency is just so important in any of these.
So here's a kind of a final question on this. So let's talk about consistency on this stuff. There's another C word. It's called commitment, right? You've got to be committed to the plan, right? That's really what it's about. I mean, consistency, you can create consistency because you can build a plan, but the owner who's hiring you, the entrepreneur, has to be committed to the time frame and the outcome, right? I think that's really important. So I always like people, like, when they explain commitment to me, you need to be committed to this, and then that's a reminder, but it's just, there is commitment to marketing. Again, it's not going to save your business. If you're in a bad way, marketing is not going to be the saving grace. The saving grace will be knocking on doors and actually selling stuff. But I'm saying, when it's not your last dollar and you're doing a marketing plan, you have to commit to the process. And I think, and this is just my own viewpoint here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the marketer should be explaining that level of commitment.
Yeah.
Like, the ones who don't mention that word, like, to the whole plan, I'm not going to throw them all under the bus, but I'm saying, like, they have to explain that, because if you don't tell them, that entrepreneur is going to want that thing in 30 days, 45 days. They're going to want to see stuff. They want those numbers. And you haven't managed their expectations, right?
Absolutely. I think a couple of things on commitment. One, yes, they're going to expect a very quick turnaround, but you could say, look, we need to stay committed to this. This is when we expect to see the results. This is kind of what you can expect. That's the way I usually put it. But I like the word commitment, so I'm gonna weave that in there. But, like, I always say, like, okay, here's what you could expect in, like, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Like, this is what we're working towards, and then these are the things that are going to happen in these phases. But also the commitment is understanding that you have to be a part of the process. Because that's another problem that we always have, is that we sell a campaign, let's just say, and they're like, okay, go do it and make magic happen. I can definitely make magic happen, but I need your input. I need your commitment to be working with us. It's a collaborative effort. It's not my brand. At the end of the day, it's just not my brand. I'm helping you. So it's like, help me help you kind of mentality of, like, you are the expert at what you do, and we need to extract that. I'm pulling information from you to make you look good. So I think one big misnomer for any marketing or PR campaign is that you don't have to actually, as the entrepreneur, do any of the work. You do have to help fuel the ideas and the vision and the voice of the work that you want completed, because the marketer is just doing what they're doing best, which is the positioning and the storylines and putting it where it needs to be. But the entrepreneur, the CEO, whoever the person is in charge, CMO, whoever the person is in charge of this, needs to understand they need to deliver that content. They need to deliver some ideas As far as not marketing ideas, but brand ideas, right? What is that consistent vision that you want to be elevated? What is the ROI that you are looking for? They need to be committed to really communicating with you. And that's a part of that commitment is like the most part for me, important part for me is getting that commitment is like, hey, let's collaborate. I'm not going to bombard you with questions. I know how to be proactive. I know how to get an answer that I want to hear. So it's not about you doing the work. It's just about you collaborating when I do need to get information from you, being open, transparent. I also like to work with the sales team, hear what they're hearing about the customers and how they're communicating. So that communication line needs to be very open, and that commitment to doing that communication needs to be there. Because if you think that you're just going to hand this project over to somebody else, then that's just definitely not going to work the way you want it to.
Yeah, that's great because that is it. You have to control. No one knows your brand like you do as the owner.
Yes, yes.
Entrepreneur. Saying they can't read your mind. You got to just figure it out. Put an hour a week or whatever it's going to be, and like put this stuff
Whatever.
down. And you're going to be mad because you actually didn't do any work. You really don't know who you're serving. You got all these other issues. They're all going to get exposed, but you can fix it. And having a marketing committee is going to fix all those things for good, and it'll be great.
I've been actually doing that more lately in my calls with people. I'll say, okay, well, this is going to require you to be available about like 1 to 2 hours a week. And so that way they could I just say, it's nice if you just block it off on your calendar, like as marketing time or PR time, because 1 to 2 hours, I mean, if you think about the whole week, that's not very much,
Right.
just a little bit of brain power from you will give me about 20 hours of work. So that's all I need,
Yeah, I think, we'll wrap it up with manage people's expectations. You do it as an entrepreneur, whether you're doing construction or you're selling a product, you're always managing people's expectations so that you can give them what you want to give them. So you can deliver that end result and they like it and you're still friends and you'll still like each other when you're done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that whole thing. It's like if everyone understands the journey together, the outcomes will be great. And everybody wins. So that's awesome. So, Ranjini, this has been awesome. This has really been great. I think we hit some really, really great stuff here on branding and marketing itself, and I appreciate all the insight and your experience has been awesome. So if people want to get in touch with you, follow you, whatever you've got, share it with us now.
Yeah, I'm really easy to find. Ranjini Joshua, really easy to find on LinkedIn. And then my email is ranjini@thesilvertelegram.com. Silvertelegram.com is our website. Really, I'm very accessible by email. I'm sure you can find like all my information on the internet, but yeah, email or LinkedIn is good. Those are kind of the places I live the most.
Awesome. We'll have those in the show notes. We'll have all those links and everything else. Been a great conversation. I appreciate the time. This has been awesome. We'll get this out to everyone. I hope they learned a lot. Really, just as they're starting to look at marketing, really understand it's a little more complex than you think, but you're involved.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
You have to be involved with it. It's not set it and forget it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us, everybody. We will see you on the next podcast.